So I just want to welcome everybody. First, so good to see you, Asha Ji, after such a long time. At least visually, we can see you digitally. So nice to see you, Asha Ji. So nice. It brings back all those memories of Kolkata, your visit to Kolkata. And I'm sitting at the table where we had dinner. If you remember, once we had dinner at home, and you and Mark were here for dinner, and we had sitting at the same table today. So just to say that, some of you may know that about in 2020, Mark and Asha were in Kolkata. And it happened because of, thanks to Probir Banerjee is my colleague. Actually, he sort of connected with Mark quite well and has been a very good friend ever since. And somehow or the other, that program happened in Kolkata in 2020. And it was a very busy 3 days because he was there at giving talks, he was interacting with educators, he visited the Kolkata Book Fair, he had a stall, and then he also gave interviews to Doordarshan, which is the state television. They were doing it. So I think one of the things that, the memory that comes across of all those days is that we connected. Even after that, we connected online because COVID came, but we still had the opportunity to connect on online programs. And Mark was very generous with his time always. I think whenever we requested that we would like to do an online program, he would be there. So that association continued. And one of the things that, just struck us so much is that there are so few people like Mark actually around. That quality of goodness, that quality of a person who not just connecting to the teachings theoretically, but somebody who's actually living them. Actually, that thing came across, very, 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 very strongly. We were always connected. So when we got the news 2 weeks ago that Mark had passed away, I think one of the first things that struck us, obviously, there's a lot of sadness which is bound to be there, but even greater was, how does one cope with a spiritual vacuum? I mentioned the word spiritual vacuum because there are so many people around who are knowledgeable about Krishnamurti's teachings, etc., but so few who actually live them. So that was the reason why I think we actually felt it both ways. One, that a deep personal loss as well, but also a deep spiritual loss. Because how does one compensate for a person who had infinite patience, always ready to listen, and I think the most profound ways, interacting in the most profound ways, never loud, never aggressive. So, you really do miss such a human being. So that's why I call it a spiritual vacuum. So we in Kolkata, we thought that, all that we wanted to do today was to somehow savor that perfume once again. And we thought that the only way we could do that is perhaps through people who knew him, well, either as family or as friends or as students or as colleagues, in a variety of ways, or in such a eventful life, such a well-lived life. So that's how this informal program, came about. So it's not a formal program in that sense. We really would like to listen to, stories or anecdotes, that bring out anything that, that brings things out. So with those few words, I'll just pass on now to my colleague Sudeshna. Sudeshna Sinha is a center friend. She's an educator who also met Mark and Asha when they were here.
Good morning, everyone. Without much ado, I will start with the speakers. We are so glad to have Asha Lee with us. She was a doctor at Rishi Valley School, and that is where she and Mark Lee met. Of course, we all know Mark Lee was a teacher at the school, and Mark and Asha, they have 3 daughters, and one of them is Nandini. I think she's there with us. So, Asha Ji, I welcome you, and we will have interactions till 10 a.m. and then we wish to show a video of Mark. So Asha Ji.
I remember my visit to Kolkata and seeing all of you. It was very wonderful to know that you were all there. And you all someone from Kolkata used to call us very often, I remember.
He's here, Asha Ji. He's in the gathering today. Probir Banerjee.
Yeah.
Probir was a very good friend of Mark. They were soulmates. Actually, they were soulmates.
which was wonderful.
Yes. And in fact, Asha ji, they connected even while Mark was in hospital. I mean, Prabhida was to share everything. He would say that, would you believe it, in this pain, he's still been able to send me a message for
We would
joining.
also, like to hear from Nandini.
I just want to say thank you so much to everybody for joining together and remembering my dear dad, and obviously such a dear person to so many people. So just very grateful for all of the love shown to us and to my dad, and very grateful. I'm very grateful for that. And yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. Namaste. Thank you. I have not had a chance to meet you all. I look forward to meeting you in Kolkata. And for me, I came into the world of Mark Lee only about 12 years ago. I feel like my father passed away, and so he was near and dear. He was such a loving human being that he loved to sing, and he loved to engage in things wholeheartedly in everything that he did, whether it was polishing the furniture and making it anew, whether it was building Oak Grove School or teaching students, or even guiding our daughter. Nandini and I have a 10-year-old girl, Sequoia. And even for us as parents, we would go to him and ask him, hey, we are having some challenges here. How do we deal with this? And he had this infinite well of wisdom that this is a small blip in the road. This too will, and give a lot of love towards it. And so there was a lot of, he embodied a lot of kindness in a way that was fully present in whatever he did, whether he was writing a check. These are my observations. Whether he was driving his car, whether he was about to speak to a large gathering of students, or the garbage out of the house, or washing dishes. He did every single thing, every single activity with a kind of, he was a mountain of a man. And so for all of us, he was a great template for emulating, for learning from. And so it's really beautiful. I feel very blessed that, for me to learn and to see so many generations of children, of families that are touched, so many alumni from Rishi Valley. I see Siddhartha there, also here with us, and and there are so many other students who are on WhatsApp groups who are sharing. We just saw this newspaper, the op-ed in the Indian Express by Opali, a student, and touching to see so many generations of people touched by just pure beauty and love. So I'm really grateful. I thank you for this opportunity, for allowing us and to also join and share with you. And I thank you for taking the leadership. I know that the Krishnamurti Foundation of America and the Oak Grove School are planning to have a memorial here on the 11th of May, Saturday morning at 10 a.m. Thank you so much. Thank you. Namaste. Shukriya.
Mr. Rao, would you like to share, in the last few days, I think you discussed with Marx about some project or...
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you. Thank you, Sudip. Yes. He was, of course, he has left behind a lot of legacy, in terms of not just the students and not just the family, daughters and friends. There's so many friends, but also the publications, all the volumes, the Krishnamurti volumes, but also his own books, his 3 books that he wrote, Knocking at the Open Door, A World Teacher, and Krishnamurti's Process. And so I will share shortly, Sudeshna. It was just lovely to spend time with him. And I just want to share with everybody that he lived a full life, and he left very gracefully. And I'll just share 1 or 2 anecdotes, and that is, even in the last couple of days when he was interacting with the nurses and the doctors there, his sense of humor reflected his lightness of being, about how he took himself not seriously. He had no self-pity. Oh, why am I here? No, he was able to see the humanity of the nurses, and he was even considerate towards them, the doctors and the hospitals. And there was a lightness of spirit. He was joking with them about the things that, the day-to-day things that they're doing. And so it was really refreshing, but it was really, really wonderful to spend that quality time with him. So very graceful human being, very beautiful departure, and he's left behind a beautiful legacy for us. Yeah. Thank you.
Next, Kamalji, we'll go to Alokji. Alokji, I think most of us doesn't need an introduction, but nonetheless, Kamalji gave me the responsibility of saying 1 or 2 lines about him. He was an educator at Rishi Valley School for over 3 decades. He is also a trustee of the Krishnamurti Foundation. Alokji is remembered with great fondness by his students. In Kolkata, teachers who attended education workshop, I was also one of them. It was conducted by Alokji and Chandrika Mathur in 2019. We have fond memories of the event and his skills as a communicator. So Alokji, I invite you to tell us something about Mark.
Yeah, first of all, I'd like to thank Kamalji and the Kolkata Center for even conceiving of this, bringing people together to remember Mark Lee. I think it's really, he was a remarkable human being, and I think it's only right to, share our impressions of him. And I'm so happy to see Asha Ji, Nandini, and I've never met her daughter Sequoia, but, we don't know each other very well. But the few times that we have met on their visits to India and once my visit to US, it's been really quite special to be in contact with Mark and with his family. I would say as a unit, it's been really good to know them. Very briefly, I just say I didn't know much about Mark for many years. I joined Rishi Valley in the 1980s, and we used to hear the name Mark Lee. He was something of a legend, as somebody who had taught there in the 70s, I think. Some of his students were around. They would speak of him. But my chance to meet Mark actually personally came when I was myself in US for a year, and I was doing a course in education. There was an event being organized by the university, which was a forum for international students to invite speakers. And just on an off chance, I wrote to Mark, who was at that time in Ojai, asking whether he would come and speak about Krishnamurti. And I didn't expect that he would really respond to that, to just a letter out of the blue. But sure enough, I got a letter from Mark, and he didn't know me very well. Responding to that and said, yes, I'm coming. Evelyn Blau and I will come. They made their plans and they visited Boston, and we were able to spend 2 wonderful days together. And he gave a very, very good, effective talk on Krishnamurti and his educational philosophy to a number of international students who were there at the university. So that was my first actual meeting with Mark. And a few months later, I was a guest at Ojai at the Oak Grove School, along with a few other teachers from the Krishnamurti schools. And of course, though Mark was no longer directly associated, but we would meet him. He would come to the school, meet him, and then we were invited to his home. And I remember very, very deeply the one meal we had together with Asha, Mark. I think Nandini was also there probably. it was such a warm feeling to be amidst that family. But I would like to mention one other thing which has really stayed with me about Mark, and which part of the stories we heard about Mark was why he had to leave Rishi Valley and go back to US, and that had to do with a very sad event in his life, a very traumatic, shocking event. He has two twin daughters apart from Nandini, younger than Nandini, and when they were very young, they contracted meningitis, I think, out on a field trip or something like that. Yeah. And I'd heard about this, and that the only facilities available for taking care of those children whose brains were damaged were available in California and places like that. So Mark had to relocate back to, along with Asha, back to United States. And on this occasion, when we visited their home, one of the daughters, Gayatri, her name, I remember, had actually come back to stay at home. And the kind of affection I felt that Mark surrounded her with. And in fact, he took us and introduced us to Gayatri, and in whatever way she could communicate, she responded. And that has stayed with me, that he had this sorrow in his life, but it never cast a shadow on him. He moved through it in a way, taking it on in a way. And I really appreciate what Mr. Rao said, that he had a certain lightness of being, a lightness of spirit, which I think everyone could feel. He was a big man, and his smile was very infectious. And every time he would visit Rishi Valley subsequently, I think that became more often once he became trustee of the Indian Foundation. He would come every year or every 2 years at least, and then he would make a trip to Rishi Valley and we would meet then. So I'm so happy that we are able to share this feeling that we have towards Mark with everyone, and especially with Asha and Nandini. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to share.
Thank you, Alok ji. So, Siddharth ji, if you could tell us about Mark Lee as a teacher, or whatever you feel like, you share something with us.
Well, thank you, Sudeshna, for inviting me to say. And I have to say, I'm sorry that I never had the opportunity to actually be Mark's student, because by the time I joined Rishi Valley as a student, Mark had left. But I remember first seeing him in Rishi Valley when I was still a student. He was on a visit to India. Krishnaji was there at that time. It was winter. And Mark was invited to give a talk to the students at the school assembly. And I remember the first thing that struck me was his great height and the fact that the mic had to be constantly readjusted because the Rishi Valley assembly had never seen somebody so tall speaking from there. But subsequently, I had many opportunities to engage with Mark and his lovely family. And I have only warm and happy and enriching memories from all those engagements. I'm thinking especially of 10 years ago when I first visited Ojai for some trustee meetings, after which Mark organized a driving trip north through California and planned it in such a way that we were able to visit places that I was particularly interested in, such as the birthplace of the author John, the kind of simple considerateness. I was a little in awe of him at that time, meeting him closely. But by the end of the trip, I felt like he was somebody I had known very closely for a long. There's a lot more I could say, but I should stop. I'm sure there are others.
Then we'll go to our center friend Probirda. He has been closely interacting with Mark Lee till even a few days before his death. He has had WhatsApp messages, exchanges through WhatsApp messages, and Probirda has translated in Bengali 2 of Mark's books, World Teacher and the Book of Life. So Probirda, kindly share your feelings.
Hello, this is Prabhu Kumar Banerjee of KFI Kolkata Center. We all know that Sir Mark Lee had left us on 6 April 2024. Whoever has seen Sir has found that Sir himself was a very smiling person. He was an understanding person. He was friendly in nature. He was a quite accessible person, and definitely he was knowledgeable. He was a teacher. He was a thinker. He was a school founder, writer. He was an educationist, and he was a trustee of KFI and KFA. And everybody who has seen him, who has had the opportunity to be in close touch with Sir, found that he was a very patient man in nature. Now, contextually, one of the former students of Rishi Valley School has recounted that Sir was an embodiment of what J.K. spoke about. Once Sir narrated to her a discussion. This discussion he had with J.K. about the overwhelming proliferation of evil and how it should be dealt with. Sir asked her what she would do when she encountered rank evil. The student replied, surround it with love. But Sir replied, no, 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 surround it with goodness. That was what J.K. had told Mark Lee, Sir. Now, I have found, or not only me, but all of my friends have found that Sir was deeply committed to J.K.'s teachings. Till his last breath, he manifested the exploration of human consciousness and professed the teachings of Jiddu Krishnamurti, sowing the seeds for inspiring future generations in their seeking understanding and self-discovery. Now, I can remember that on 4th February 2020, Sir had delivered a public talk in Kolkata. This talk was organized by KFI Kolkata Center. He spoke on the challenges of working with Jiddu Krishnamurti. He said at the time that for him, J.K. had acted as an honest mirror through the years. Now, personally, I did have some opportunity to interact with him over phone. Now, whenever I spoke to him over phone, mostly for an hour or so, over personal matters or on every human issue, Sir spontaneously exuded an amorphous love, warmth and affection. We also spoke about the book, The World Teacher and the Book of Life. Now, with Sir's exit, I find that I am left with the contentless teachings. Perhaps there is nothing mysterious in all this. This was to happen someday or other. Now I find that I have no place to turn but myself, and it is a great shock. Such a situation has also sprouted in me this question: did I unknowingly depend on Sir psychologically? Now I wonder whether Sir's exit is an irreparable loss to the spiritual world and to the K foundations and K centers. I may be totally wrong, but all of you are my friends. So why should I hold back this question from you? The question is, despite all the earnest efforts of the K foundations and K centers towards physical dissemination of JK's teachings through publication and sale of books, videos, audios, dialogues, retreats. Do JK's teachings have any future on the level that JK was concerned about? Is there not still a challenge for each of us in our relationships with each other, in the way we lead our daily lives? At the same time, in my present state of mind, another question crops up. That is, what is the future of JK's teachings when person like Mark Lee sir, who came in direct contact with JK, pops up? Sir said that after Buddha's departure, hundreds of years passed and there were no written records. Only there was a record of monks and the public who were inspired by the way what Buddha taught and were apparently living the Buddhist teachings. It is going to be similar with Krishnaji. We will be left in time with only the relationships that we have, the perceptions of people, and the living dimensions of their understanding. That is where the teachings will live, and that is what JK was speaking about. That is what he was asking of us. Meanwhile, great friends like Mark Lee sir will bid goodbye in tune with the laws of nature. Sir had said somewhere, I think it is incumbent on the foundations to sit down and really seriously prioritize its activities and to look at how it spends its time, money and energy. And it will see a disproportionate weighing in terms of all the obvious physical activities that any kind of an organization would engage in: seminars, dialogues, programs, book dissemination, etc. The other aspect of the dissemination is virtually neglected simply because we don't understand it. And we think we don't have people who can explore that. That is the side of the living human interaction. According to Sir, this is where the foundations should put more of their resources in identifying, empowering the people who have some understanding of consciousness, of culture, of the issues that the teachings point to. They don't have to understand Krishnamurti and the catechism of the teachings. They have to understand the human beings and how the mind works and all the rest of it. And have those people meet with others, talk, dialogue, explore, give public discourse, whatever they need to do. That all depends on the talents. Different people have different talents in that regard, but that is where the teachings will continue to live. Thank you all.
Thank you, Prabhupada, for raising these pertinent questions. I will invite Ravi D'Souza. He was a student of Mark Lee. I would want to know that how they have been impacted.
Thank you, Sudeshna.
Yeah.
By a brief introduction, I happen to be a doctor working in public health. I'm based in Bangalore at the moment. And I was a student of Rishi Valley School and of Mark Lee sir from 1966 to 1969. Yeah. I just wanted to say a few words of my memories of Mark Lee sir as a teacher. He was a very different kind of teacher in the sense that he involved his students in his teaching very actively. And he used different methods in his teaching. And one of them was reading out stories to us or reading out books to us, sometimes a chapter a day. And his favorite book for reading out to students was Charlotte's Web. I think in Upali's article, she has also mentioned this book. He read it out to us, and he would get into each of the characters in that book and change his voice according to the character. And I cannot tell you how much all of us used to look forward to his class and this particular session of his reading out Charlotte's Web to us. He also did things like puppet shows. He would take a story and get us to make a puppet show out of it. And this technique he repeated with different classes. As a teacher, he commanded a lot of respect and affection. And though he was not strict, nobody dared play the fool or create any mischief in his class, because we all liked him so much and we all wanted to hear what he had to say. And this was because he treated everybody the same, but he would seek out the people who were shy, the students who were shy and who were withdrawn, and give them a little extra attention and encourage them to speak up and participate in the class. And in that sense, he did a lot to build self-confidence in his students. And I also remember of classes, he knew everything what was going on. And one of my memories of him was, there was an ugly stone throwing incident there where some of the village boys threw stones on some of us students in Rishi Valley, and I got hurt quite badly on the head. He ran to the tennis courts and he carried me away in his arms to the dispensary and made sure that I got medical attention for that. And he stayed with me to make sure that I was well seen too. This is something that remains with me will remain me always. He said later, when I met him in the US, he said he found it very difficult to adjust to teaching American children because there was much less respect and they used to call him by his first name, and he said he found it very difficult to get used to. Mark Lee sir took the trouble of visiting myself and my wife. We are doctors working in public health. At that time, we were in central India, in Chhattisgarh. He came and spent a couple of days and he saw the work that we do. And during that time, one morning in our house, I played a CD, a recording of the chants and shloka singing in Rishi Valley, which I had with me. He sat in silence listening to this, and then a little later, I saw tears flowing down his cheeks, and he was quite moved by that. I think it brought back a lot of memories to him, sad as well as happy. Anyway, I would just like to conclude this. My memories of him are of a wonderful man, a wonderful teacher, and above all, a wonderful human being. He was also an extremely handsome man with a broad smile. And he reminded me very much in his demeanor of the great American actor Gregory Peck, because of his height and his smile and his demeanor and his kindness. I will always remember him that way. I convey my sympathies to the family.
Now we invite Mr. Subhash Birla. He lives in Delhi, and we have heard that he has often arranged dialogues and programs related to J. Krishnamurti at the Delhi Center. And he has invited Sir Mark Lee and Asha Lee whenever they were in Delhi.
I came in contact with Mark Lee later years. I met J. Krishnamurti in 1983 when he made a last visit to Delhi. I'm a lawyer in Supreme Court, and one of my friends from Bombay, my colleague in lawyer in Supreme Court, he told me, "Have you heard J. Krishnamurti?" I told, "I have not heard." And he told, "Why don't you come? Today evening he's speaking in Constitution Club." I went to him. Before that, I was having, from my student day affiliations, I was not close to teachings or religious groups or anything like that. And in Constitution Club, he spoke for 1 hour and 15 minutes or something like that. And I was sitting on floor, and some of the people, political people or some close to J. Krishnamurti, they were sitting on chairs, old people only. And that time was such, I think that he's addressing to me what I wanted in my political affiliation. All those things are bogus. And after hearing him, he went to probably Varanasi. Next day, I also booked my ticket, train ticket to Varanasi, and 1 or 2 days I stayed, and he had that program. That was the beginning 1983, and after the death of J. Krishnamurti in 1987, I visited Brookwood Park also, met children and teachers and all that. That was my initial contact with the J. Krishnamurti. With regard to Mark Lee, I may just tell, and I may say, I was having very personal relation with him, and I found him that he was, as my previous speaker has spoken, very simple person, with full of humility and very personal touch. It was not like, though he was a trustee of KFI and KF America also, but he was very personal. And he was remaining in touch with me. I visited United States and I wanted to visit Hawaii, and he made arrangement for my stay. Thereafter, I remained in touch with the KFI meetings and met him in trustee meetings in Chennai. And since then, I remained in touch. Last time I met him with Asha Lee, when probably she came in February 2023. So that was my relation. And before that, Nandini got married with Mr. Rao. And whole our family attended a reception which he hosted in India International Center. He was always looking as a personal friend, and he was addressing like that only. Always Mark Lee encouraged me for doing something. And I always asking him what should be the format of the meeting. He was very giving me all in emails. It is, you can have this format, that format with video, all such things he was doing. And last meeting in 2023 was so good. We had some new people, some female friends who were putting some personal questions about their marriage and other things also. He was very much informal about such things. And I still remember that he was down to earth in teachings, and he was living in teaching. That I can say. And I express my condolences to Asha Ji, Nandini Ji, and I hope to meet Kolkata Center's people very soon. I'm in touch with Kamal Ji. He is regularly writing me, he is informing me, he is keeping me on my mailing list. It is my fault I could not visit Kolkata for a number of years. Thank you very much, Kamal. And
Thank you. Thank
all
you.
Kolkata friends.
Thank you.
Thank you, Birla Ji, that you are sharing that whenever Sir Mark Lee we used to ask for any guidance, he used to send us long emails with all kinds of, guidance. We used to have
Right.
that even we have experienced.
Small things he was just explaining me. This format, if 10 persons are there in meeting, you have this format. If 50 people are there, you should have this format.
We would readily help for anything.
Very helpful. Yeah.
We are so glad to have Radhika Herzberger, Radhika Ji amongst us. Radhika Ji is a writer, educationist, Indologist. Of course, she's a former director of Rishi Valley Education Center, and in 2013, Government of India awarded her the Padma Shri for her contributions to literature and education. She's a trustee of Krishnamurti Foundation, India. That's a very, very brief introduction of hers. Radhika Ji.
I met Mark Lee in 1968 when my husband and I visited Rishi Valley. And he was one of the most impressive teachers I have ever met. He had met Krishnaji at Sanan during the talks, and Krishnaji had passed him. Krishnaji was in a car being driven around, and he had seen Mark Lee and stopped the car and asked him to join for a chat. Now, Mark was at that time teaching in a very famous school in Switzerland called La Rosie. I think that's where the Aga Khan's sons, or the present Aga Khan, studied. And that Krishna, he was also interested in Krishnaji, and Krishnaji invited him to join one of his schools. And Mark Lee, in a gesture, impressive gesture, gave up that job in Switzerland and joined Rishi Valley School. At that time, the school was just beginning in the academic sense. And there were not many books for children because there had been a hiatus between the departure of the last principal and the new principal. The school had closed down, so there was very little material. And Mark Lee, I remember, was a pioneer in that field. He taught geography. Let me give you some examples of that. He taught geography from stamps, foreign stamps that were sent to Krishnaji, and he got together, and from the look of the stamp, he taught history and geography. And he started a ham radio so that the children could broadcast. And as a recent essay in the New Indian Express by Upadi Aparajita says, he had them read classical texts and then render them into plays and perform them. And the students from those days still remember him and go on pilgrimage to Ohio to see him. Till recently, till his death, they kept going, and they kept that passion for him. Now, the second thing I would like to say was Krishnaji was if I may use this word in quotes, was a devotee of Krishnaji in the broadest, most generous sense. He had a close personal relationship with him. He worked for his institutions. He disseminated teachings, and he wrote a philosophical biography later in life, as well as his own personal autobiography. One of the most popular works of Krishnaji's is the quote of the day, quotations for Krishnaji. That was really a mountainous job, which is to take all the early verbatim talks and have them re-edited and published as the collected works. And that's a huge task, not only getting them properly edited, but finding a publisher and publishing them in I don't know how many volumes. So in a sense, and he was very close to Krishnaji. He had a difficult life. We all know that he had children who were handicapped. It's one of the most difficult things in life to cope with, of great dignity, great compassion. And I admire him greatly for the way he and Asha, his wife, treated those children, dealt with those children. Now, but towards the later half of his life, his daughter Nandini became a doctor and presented him with from what I hear, a magnificent grandchild. So he was utterly devoted to the child. So his last days were, in some senses, full of affection, surrounded by family and friends. So this is my tribute to Mark, that he served Krishnaji in many capacities, and in a sense was an ideal devotee, if I can use that term, devotee, for him. I use it deliberately, but in inverted commas. That's all. That's my tribute to
Thank you so much.
Mark. Yes.
Thank you so much.
If there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Yes. Like in Krishnaji's last days, I believe Mark was with him.
Yes, he was with him, very close to him. And Krishnaji, yes. Lee was the principal of Oak Grove School. He was a teacher at Oak Grove School. He did not divide his role as principal from his role as teacher, which is remarkable because principals are figures of authority. He did not accept that role in its fullest and the most authoritarian sense of that word. He was teacher all his life, and that was significant. And he was generous. That I must say, if you asked him, wrote to him and said you wanted a certain piece of writing, you wanted a certain letter, he would really go out of his way to have it. I have a lot of material that he found for me from the Huntington Library. So in a sense, he was not self-centered. He wrote about Krishnaji, but many people who write about Krishnaji want to hold him, want to possess their own work and their own relationship, treat it as unique. He never did that. And that was remarkable. He never did that. He was generous. He answered, he met people's needs. I think that was very significant part of it. He was a member, by the way, of the Krishnamurti Foundation, of two foundations, the Krishnamurti Foundation of America and the Krishnamurti Foundation of India. And that was one of the Krishnaji's great desires, the foundations be kept united. And he played a role in that too. I listed the roles he played in Krishnaji's lives, but I didn't mention this to keep the foundations together. I think he did play a very significant role.
So Dilip, he's very keen to share something about Sir Mark Lee. He is Mr. Ravi D'Souza's brother. Over to you.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for letting me speak, Sudeshna. I am happy to go to be known as Ravi D'Souza's brother. That's perfectly fine with me. But Ravi spent 3 years in Rishi Valley. I spent only a year and a half. But my overwhelming impression of Rishi Valley from those years, 68 and 69, is Mark Lee. There's no question about it. He was the dominant presence in my mind then, and that's why he remained such a big influence on me. For all the reasons my brother said. He was larger than life. He was genial all the time. I had this big smile. He was tall and handsome. We just loved this man. And that stayed over the years. My brother stayed in much better touch with him than I did. But in 2007, I actually went, and this is what I want to talk about briefly. I went to Ohio and met Mark and Asha with my friend Unni. We were driving through and we spent a couple of days there. And so it was Christmas of 2007, and Mark and Asha took us out to dinner. And with them was an 88-year-old friend of theirs called Frances. And I remember so clearly that Frances had, at 88, she was still traveling by public transport. And she had come over that evening by bus. And on getting off the bus near wherever Mark Lee's place was, she had apparently bumped her head on the bus door or something and it hurt quite badly. So she was bleeding. And apparently she was staying with Mark and Asha. I don't remember this clearly, but I think she was. But anyway, so we went out for dinner, and all through dinner she was bleeding, and Mark was taking with some tissues, and then eventually with my hanky, because I had a clean hanky, he was patting her and mopping up this blood, and until she was feeling fine. And it just struck me that here was this man and his wife taking care of his daughters to the great compassionate extent that Radhika also spoke about. And yet he had space in his heart and his home for this 88-year-old woman. I don't know the relation between them. I don't remember. I mean, she was obviously a close friend. But here he was showing the same compassion to her. And in all that, also finding space for my friend and me and taking us out to dinner. It was just a remarkable... he was just a remarkable man in many, many ways. Later, some years later, he sent me his book to review, because one thing I do is a few book reviews. And this is the book called Knocking on...
Open Door.
Yes, Knocking on Open Door. I was struck by how much he had been influenced by Krishnamurti, but I think in the best tradition of Krishnamurti, had also realized that there were questions to be asked about Krishnamurti. And he asked those questions. He was asking them of himself, of Krishnamurti, and in some points in the book, it was almost like a silent, a quiet, silent. I don't want to say rebuke, but a definite disagreement with some of the things that Krishnamurti would say, yet in this greatly respectful way. And it struck me that that's the kind of man that I think Krishnamurti would have been particularly proud of. Not somebody who would just sit there and sing his praises, but would ask questions. And that's the kind of man Mark Lee was. And that's the reason I remember him so fondly. So Asha and Nandini, I see you're there on the screen there. My sympathies to you. You had, there was this wonderful man in your life, and I'm so glad that he was part of our lives too. And I hope, like my brother said, that we will see you at some point soon. Thank you so much, Sudeshna.
Thank you, Dilip. Thank you for coming today, Dilip. And we read your review. It's a lovely review. I read that once again. I read it earlier, but it was so good to read it once again.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else wants to share?
I think
Yes.
Catherine Jones has raised her hand.
I met Mark Lee in 1968 at Rishi Valley. I was invited with my husband, Raja Rao, and our 2-year-old son. And I spent, I don't know, 1 week, 2 weeks, I can't remember now. And I was very taken with the atmosphere of the school. And I work in the theater in New York. So I wrote a little play for the students to act called The Hill, because the presence and the energy of the hill at Rishi Valley the energy was so powerful. And later, when I went from New York to Hollywood, a mutual friend of ours, Roshan Seth, told me Mark was now in Ojai. I had never heard of Ojai, but I got in touch, and Mark and Asha invited me to come and stay with them, and I think be on a panel during the Krishnamurti gathering on creativity and on education. And my relationship with Mark and Asha was that they became my family 3 years later after meeting and seeing Ojai. I moved there. And Mark loved filmed, and we would often, the three of us, go to good films, art films, and we both love books. And I want to share one quick thing. I also teach writing and work as a writing consultant. And Mark asked me to be a consultant for his book called World Teacher. And I read the early draft, and it was supposed to be a memoir about Krishnamurti. And I told him, I said, Mark, this is a memoir. There's nothing about you here. It's all Krishnamurti. And he would mention things that Kay had done or said, but he would omit the fact that they were said when he was walking alone with Krishnamurti on Shelf Road. Or he would mention the school, but not mention that he was founding principal or director. And I thought, you know, this is carrying modesty a little too far. And I thought, I have to say this in a very certain way to get him to bring himself a little bit into the project. So I said, you know, if the reader knows you were there when Krishnamurti said this, or that you were part of the school, they're going to take it more seriously because they know it happened because you were there. And he said, well, that makes sense. So he rewrote it and brought himself a little in. But I think this exemplifies one of Mark's qualities, that his focus was so totally on his teacher that he disappeared. And And I can say my relationship to Mark, he was like a soul brother. And he and Asha, my family in Ojai. But he was a dear friend, and I was with him a lot the last few weeks of his life. I don't think I've ever seen anyone carry suffering with such dignity and grace as he did. And anyway, he was a very rare human being, and he'll be missed by many, many people. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Catherine. Thank you so much. Very moving.
So it has been all these messages are very touching. I remember when he came to Calcutta, I mean, just standing in front of him only, there was so much of silence. I don't know, words are a big limitation of how to express. But we will go on to a video now.
Mark appears in this video. It's a very nice video which Michael Mendiza selected and sent to Prabir Banerjee. So we will play that. We wanted to somehow just to get that perfume once again today. And thanks to everybody, thanks to Asha Ji, Nandini, Sudip, all the students of Mark Lee and Radhika Ji, Alok Mathur, everybody, thank you so much for being part of this.
Fortunately, because of the proximity of life in Santa Barbara, took me to some unusual people that I met in Ojai. And here in Ojai, I had the opportunity to read Krishnamurti, to meet people who knew him. And it was just an explosion of kind of an awakening that this was the direction that I was looking for. Not the man, and not the teaching so much as simply the opening up, the awakening that he was referring to. If you're constantly focused on the phenomena, or the siddhis, or the spirituality of Krishnamurti, this will take you away from that. It can become an experience, it can become something that is quite a distraction. So I think however you go into it, whether it's through reading, through watching videos, or through your own life, as I had life experience of being with him, you had to separate that. You had to keep that aside from the essential work or the essential movement that he was talking about, which is completely different for everyone. If you come to people who get obsessed with the books and the biographies and the films and all the rest of it, this is all inconsequential. This is not this really important dimension. It's what he was pointing to. You. That's the important thing. And if you can, I find I get caught so often with people who obsess over one or two dimensions of K, but it's all on the level of phenomena. It's all on the level of things, of books and tapes and stories and ideas, and it's all so unimportant. Go to what he was pointing to and stay with that.